Hey there, folks. I'm Meteorologist Matt Barrentine in the Fox 10 Gulfstream Center, trying to get everything set up. Obviously, all eyes are down on Beryl now in the Caribbean. It was in the Atlantic this morning. It crossed over the little island of Curacao or Curacao. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce it. I've heard it a couple of different ways, but it's just north of Grenada. And it plowed over that island. I mean, the eye went right through the island, over the island. In fact, the entire island, that little island, was completely within the eye earlier on today. So crazy situation there. Now it's moving into the Caribbean, and it's still a very strong, very powerful storm. Let's see if I can get everything to work here. I knew as soon as I took a... Sorry, this computer that's over here is slow as Christmas, and if I don't touch it for a minute or two, it decides just it's going to lock up. So that's what it's done to me. So let me zoom on down here. This is the 3D imagery of it, and you can really get a good feel for it there. Look at that. That is a monster of a storm. It is not pretty. Well, I guess in a way it's pretty, but it's obviously a monster. The good news is where it's at now is not going to bother anybody, okay? It's already made a pass over, like I said, the Windward Islands of the Caribbean. You can see that here. This is what we call the wobble tracker. It's a really zoomed in look with the path that we can show you there. It shows you how the eye will make those little wobbles, and it's getting it. Boy, it has fully re-strengthened after crossing over those islands. That is one of the most symmetrical eyes you're ever going to see, most symmetrical storms you're ever going to see. I mean, that is just an amazing sight right now. Like I said, the good news is where it's at now is out over the open water of the Caribbean. It's not going to impact land for several days. So we got several days just to watch this thing, and the good news is where it's going to go will likely weaken it because of some upper level wind shear. I'll talk more about that in a minute. Here's a nice close in look here that we are seeing. So yeah, pretty amazing stuff looking there. So here it's the numbers: 150 mile per hour, Cat 4 storm. Obviously, it's just an absolute monster. Moving to the west-northwest at 20 miles an hour, 60 miles west-northwest of, I believe it's pronounced Curacao Island, because there's also a Curacao further south, the ABC Islands in the Caribbean. I believe it's pronounced Curacao. And it is now moving, like I said, where it's going now is fine. It's not going to impact anything. Out here, there are no islands through the center part here of the Caribbean where it's going to roll through. And there's nothing to take a direct hit for several days. So that's good news there. Now, in the long term, Jamaica is going to have to keep an eye on it for Wednesday. But look at the strength here of it. Right now at Category 4, but you can see the little icons here showing us Category 3, then a Category 2, then even a Category 1. So it's a weakening system across the Caribbean. Well, how do we know that? Well, because right through here, and this is very typical of the Caribbean at this time of year, there's upper level winds that are cutting through the Caribbean right now. Tropical systems do not like strong upper level winds, wind shear. What happens is, you know, we look at these maps and they look two-dimensional, flat. But a hurricane or a tropical storm is not two-dimensional. It's three-dimensional. It has a very big vertical component. I mean, it builds way up into the sky. I just showed you the 3D satellite imagery. Well, when you have strong upper level winds hitting those cloud tops, basically it shears them off. Think about like hedge clippers just shearing off the top of those clouds. So it disrupts the vertical structure of the storm. And a strong storm, especially like this one, needs that vertical structure. It's almost like it's an exhaust mechanism. It exhausts energy into the upper levels of the atmosphere. Excuse me. So when it runs into upper level wind shear, it has a devastating effect on it. Now, it's a very strong storm, Category 4. So it's going to take some time for it to weaken. When you wind up a storm that strong, it takes some time to wind it down. That's what we're looking at here as it crosses the Caribbean. If this was a Category 2 storm, it would probably be, you know, a tropical depression by the time it got over there to Mexico and Belize. And that's going to be the next area where it could be making landfall, most likely be making landfall. Now, it'll be pretty close to Jamaica on Wednesday, right through here. There's Jamaica right there. It's going to be a pretty close call with Jamaica. Obviously, if it's farther south on this track, the less they'll get out of this, but it'll be pretty close. They're on the middle or north part of this track. I mean, the eye could make landfall on Jamaica if it takes more of this northerly route on here. But most of the models are keeping this thing more kind of in the center part of this track, going towards Belize and Jamaica, maybe even a little more on the southern side. I'll show you that here in a second. Then it brings into the Bay of Campeche Saturday morning. So let's look at a couple, well, all the models really. This is the forecast models. I'm going to get this big. And now, one of the things I want you to notice here, there are a few outliers, we call them. And let me get my cursor up here. Particularly these two, NVGM, MVGI. You're like, uh-oh, I see something there. And you see this one called CLIP, CLP5. Now, there's about 25, 30 models on this board. Some of the models we use for different things. And the MVGM, MVGI, those are part of the Navy no-gaps model. And they're good at giving us an idea of the wind shear and some of the other environmental issues going on, but they're terrible for tracking. They're no good for tracking. In fact, we call it's no gaps. We call it the forecasters call it the no good model for. So it doesn't. So these two lines, I mean, you can basically just disregard them. They're not going to do anything. And the CLP5 it's the Clipper model, and the Clipper is just based on wind values. So and momentum. It has nothing to do with the environmental factors that will actually steer the storm. So they put these models in for different reasons to look at different things. And some of them really aren't used for the actual forecasting the track because they don't work for that, which are the ones that are turning it closer to us. So no worries. You can see the vast majority of the models are bringing it right down into the Yucatan, across Belize, and then into the Bay of Campeche. I'm pretty confident in all that, and I'll show you some of the other reasons why. First off, the steering flow. And this is Wednesday. This is when it would be close to Jamaica, and you can see right here, there's where the storm would be, right through here. And up here in the upper levels, this pinkish stuff, that pink area, that's an upper level high. That's what's going to steer the storm. Think of it like a mountain. The storm cannot climb a mountain. It's going to go around the mountain, okay? The difference is these mountains can move, right? So if this is moving too much, it could open the door to this thing to come up here, right? Well, it's not going to open the door quite that much, and you'll see that as I play this out a little bit. We're going to stop it when it's making landfall here around, or there it is right there around, closing in on Cozumel. And that's Thursday evening. But look at this high pressure up in our area, completely blocking it, forcing it westward. Now, a little window does open up late. And here's what I'm talking about. You can see it weakening. The high pressure is weakening Saturday. That may allow it to make a last-minute turn either to the northern part of Mexico or maybe the Rio Grande Valley of Texas. It's not going to be able to make this turn and come back at us. Just won't be able to do that. Too much high pressure there. It cannot climb that mountain. It cannot climb a mountain. It can go around a mountain, and where that little weakness is, right up here on the Rio Grande Valley, it might allow it to turn. What's really going to matter is how far south is this. If it's a little bit more like here, another 100 miles or so to the north, it maybe crossed up here around Cozumel rather than through Belize. That'll make a big difference between whether or not it has a chance to get up to Texas. If it's pretty far south, like it's showing up here on this model, it almost certainly will end up in Mexico. So we've got a lot going on out there with this. Here is the GFS model. It shows that the GFS model shows it making landfall in Jamaica on Wednesday, so it's a more of a northerly route. So, and that'll make a difference because, like I said, there's going to be a door opening here towards the end for a possible landfall near the Rio Grande Valley of Texas, and you can see that right there at the very end of this model run. It makes a turn. I'm backing it up Sunday morning, almost due north up towards South Texas. And that was because this is a more of a northerly run of this with this model. Now let's look at the European model. The European model is going to take it a little bit farther to the south, and this is what I think is a little bit more likely, where it should just miss Jamaica by a little bit to the south. And, well, you know what? There it goes. That makes landfall in Belize on Friday. And then now watch to see if that northerly turn happens here at the end with the European model. And it does, but not nearly as much. So here, instead of the Rio Grande Valley, the European model brings it down in around Veracruz. So Veracruz, Mexico, pretty far south of the U.S. I think that's the more likely scenario, but it's not the only scenario. The GFS could be right. The American model could be right. It could come up more towards the Rio Grande. But regardless, that will have no real impact on us. Now, all that said, this weekend I do anticipate we'll probably look at high rip current risk. That'll be the one impact we see. And it'll be a bit breezy if you're going down to the beach. Beyond that, that's about it. Satellite radar, it's pretty quiet. We don't have the storms around today. Really, it's just stinking hot out there for us, and the heat index values are well above 100, and they'll stay above 100 through about 8 o'clock this evening. Day planner for tomorrow, there will be some scattered showers and storms, a little bit more than what we had today. So we're talking about temperatures in the lower 90s. So probably not quite as hot tomorrow either, so that'll be a relief. The rip currents, we're going low through 4th of July, the medium on Friday and Saturday. I would not be surprised, though, if that storm gets into the Gulf there, the southwestern part of the Gulf, that we don't see these things going up to high by Saturday and Sunday, the rip current risk. Here's your outlook. 4th of July, this is the 4th of July forecast for the next 30 years, right? Unless you have a tropical system, this is what it's going to look like every single year. It's going to be hot, it's going to be humid, there's going to be scattered showers and storms mainly in the afternoon. That's what we're looking at here for our 4th of July. So that's what we got going on. Once again, thank you so much for joining me here on the Fox 10 Gulf Stream. I got to go because I got to go do the 3 o'clock show. But thank you so much for joining us, and join us here on Fox 10 through the rest of the afternoon for all the latest on Beryl.